For some reason, Samskara has always haunted me. It's something I've thought about, I wanted to relive, understand better. I keep traveling a lot from Bangalore to Kundapur and I keep taking different routes, which is also something my father used to always do, explore different ways to get to a place and never the shortest route. So once I took the route via Sringeri and there was this sign of Vaikuntapura beckoning me, and I felt that I just had to go and see. As I walked into Vaikuntapura, it was like stepping into the frames of Samskara. It was, the street was there, the Agrahara was there. So then I decided to call Tom. And I thought I would hear from him and others who were involved with the film about what they actually experienced while making the film.
No, I'm trying to sort of imagine myself as a young man, 26 years old, and what I went through. And I mean, being here again, it just means it's bringing it back. It's funny how your memories
Suddenly gets jogged.
jogged, yes, but I wish I could remember every single moment of it.
When I walked into Vaikuntapura, the scent of the Snehallata creeper greeted me, and it was almost like my mother was there. And it's also interesting because these are the steps that were used for Narayanappa's house. And in the novel, Ananthamurthy talks about how Narayanappa grew this creeper in his house. But this creeper is normally not grown by Brahmins in their houses because it cannot be used for puja. And now there's a creeper here, and it's a temple.
think that era of awareness of social realities influenced it, and probably influenced Ananthamurti too.
Absolutely. I think both were influenced by their political, political beliefs in a sense.
I took the manuscript, I read it, I was stunned. And it was just not me, the whole generation in Karnataka was stunned by the novels. Nothing like that had happened in the Kannada literary scene.
I don't think Ananthamurti has written anything like Samskara till today.
When I wrote the novel, I had an influence of Lohia, Jiddu Krishnamurti, and Karl Marx. A very strange thing happening in me also. I also come from an Orthodox Brahmin family, but knew that it was losing its importance and also its validity. I related to Pattabhi because here was a man who knew that the feudal order was dying, and so he became a great critic of the feudal order.
There was a political, in a way, backdrop to the whole creation of Samskara.
I will tell you how it happened. I had a very dear, very close friend called Gopal Gowda, Shantaveri Gopal Gowda, and he was a great socialist. And he was not only a political man, but he was a very literary man. And he was excited by the novel. He had seen it even as in its manuscript stage.
We had invited Dr. Lohia and Madhulimaye and Gopal Gowda. And it so happened at the time Gopal Gowda was telling this story, and I happened to overhear. He was telling this to Dr. Lohia, saying that one of our socialist member, not actual party member, but socialist writer, Dr. Ananthamurti, has written a novel called Samskara, which has become a big controversial novel in Karnataka. There's a lot of agitation against it and all that. So he told the story briefly, which I heard. Then immediately I said that may make a good film.
And then Pattabhi said to me, "What do you think?" And I said, "Marvelous. I mean, I'm excited by the novel." And we decided to make Pattabhi decided to make the film.
Everyone did this for the love of art.
Most of us were young people. We were already into our careers. But all of us came together.
Our whole aim was to make the film. And that was a real experience for all of us, to make a film.
We were all experimenting. Here is Pattabhi experimenting, me experimenting, and the new theatre group in Madras, experimenting. All of us came together.
But out of the blue, I'm offered this opportunity here, and we go through that process. There wasn't really enough money. There wasn't. But Pattabhi says we're going to make it.
Pattabhi was trying to do something different, and one day he came to my house in Burkitt Road and said, "I have got this idea of making Samskara," and that's all. It took off. Actually, it was not so much of a production, Tom. It developed into a movement.
When something important like this happens, there are several streams in history, which when I look back, they accidentally come together.
It must have seemed like a happy accident or some sort of synchronicity.
Yeah, it is, I think, synchronicity.
That's how I got into the film at all. As I said, I came through the novel, not through the medium. And I got attracted to it, and I got, ultimately it got made. It was just marvelous. The point was that there was no English text at that time. And then Pattabhi said, can you write a scratch script? And I knew nothing about script writing. And I read Carol Rice's The Technique of Film Editing from page 1 to page 250, trying to understand how films were edited. You must realize that to that generation, it was textbooks like that we came to know how the medium worked.
My way of thinking was different in painting. I was more towards abstraction. And then in film, I wanted to bring realism, complete opposite. One advantage I had was that being a Brahmin myself, I could relate myself with those sort of things. When Pattabhi said we will make this film, so I went around and selected the village. I told Pattabhi, I think it's a fantastic location. Then he said, I'll give you a cameraman, will you take him? And that cameraman came with me. The first thing he said, sir, you could erect everything in Gemini Studios in Chennai. I said, no, we want to go to these places and shoot. Then it so happened that one evening I met Tom Cowan and Stephen Carthew, the two young Australian filmmakers. When I told the story of Samskara, immediately Tom Cowan said, is there any role for me to play? The only thing was I was a bit afraid of a foreigner seeing a village in India and getting tempted to do everything possible.
So both of you were not embedded
No.
in that Brahminical, social milieu. So I think that was an interesting combination of perceptions that viewed Ananthamurthy's novel to convert it into a film.
It was marvellous working with Pattabhi. We planned the film in Madras around the kitchen table. In fact, we made the film in Madras. 900 shots to be done in 30 days. That's 30 shots a day. Each shot was planned meticulously, like in terms of the lens, camera moves, depth of field. Now, that was a great strength of the movie. He mentions in his essay about the lilt of a line and those rhythms and changes of metre and so on that are in the film were definitely, inspired by him. And
My father, he wrote about the stark reality of things. He broke verse, he broke everything. And he talks about it also. He says, I want to break everything and still write poetry.
ನನಗೆ ಆ ಗುಂಡಿನ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ದ್ವೇಷವಿಲ್ಲ ಮಂಜಯ್ಯ. ಈ ಕಲಿಯುಗದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಜವಾದ ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣರೇ ಆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ.
The novel had created a stink as an anti-Brahmin novel. And when we decided on this village, we were told that we would probably not get permission from the monastery which rules it.
ಅವರು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಅನಂತಮೂರ್ತಿ ಬರುವಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಾರೆ ಶೃಂಗೇರಿಯಿಂದ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾವೊಂದು 4-5 ಜನ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋದ್ರು. ಅವಾಗ ಯಾರೋ ಒಬ್ಬರು ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಟರ್ ಇದ್ರು. ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲ, ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದ ಒಳಗೆಲ್ಲ ತೆಗಿಬೇಡಿ, ಹೊರಗಡೆ ತೆಗೀರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಅವರು ನಮ್ಮ ತಂದೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬಹಳ ಒಂದು ನಿಯಮ ಇತ್ತು, ಬೇರೆಯವರೆಲ್ಲ ಬರಬಾರದು ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಇತ್ತು ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನಕ್ಕೆ. ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ಬಂದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲಸ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಗಿ ಹೋದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಶಾಂತಿ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು, 300 ರೂಪಾಯಿ. ಅದನ್ನ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಶಾಂತಿ ಮಾಡಿ.
The moment I think about Samskara, the first person who comes to my mind is a very, very old Orthodox lady. Only Tom, she called him inside and she did that uppitu. She was doing that. And every day she used to give him uppitu,
Only for Tom?
Only for Tom. Nobody else. We were all outside.
I was just saying, most probably they couldn't put him into any jati. Being a white man. So if you can't put anyone to any jati, then he is acceptable like a Brahmin.
well, it was very touching. I was pleased, and slightly delighted that The others were excluded.
In those days, Sringeri had no hotels. You had to hire houses and you had to arrange with a local hotel to supply food or go there and eat and so on and so on. So,
in fact, you had named them, you put a cardboard cover, you put it on a pen or something like that, you throw Hilton Hotel and Ashok Hotel. Hilton Hotel antadu. One jagli bathroom aache kade, and we had to sing when we went to the bathroom because it had 30s on 4 sides. You have to open that 30 and go inside, there's a hole in the ground.
And how much they suffered during shooting. Food was stopped by the hotel fellow.
Oh, really? Why?
Oh, yes. They could not pay the bill, something like financial difficulties.
but the advantage was that then we lived exactly like the people there. We sat on the same pavements, we sat on the same verandas, we leaned against the same walls and so on. That was a tremendous help.
When I went to Vaikundapara recently, one of the things they were saying was, all these people came and very few people knew Kannada.
Oh, yeah.
And still we were able to communicate.
Yeah. That's more important. In these days of parochialism and very narrow-mindedness, it is not important one should know the language, but once you know what the feeling is, what the whole thing is about, that's enough.
I wanted to be an assistant director. I wanted to learn the craft because I was fascinated by it. But Pattabhi said, no, we can't go outside the group. The Madras players was there. Sneha would do, Chandriya would do, Pranesh Acharya. In the novel, Chandri has many long passages, but then Sneha is such an expressive person. And so, just her body language and her face are so expressive that I said to Pattabhi, let me cut out the dialogue. Let her be there, the silent presence. And he agreed, and that's how the script was written. Sneha had projected sensuality in a way that no Kannada heroine until then had projected. Even I find it quite sort of erotic, and for that period.
Because it's such an important scene, I think it's one of the reasons the film got banned in the first place.
Okay.
And no one thought I could do Pranesh Acharya, because I had come from the West and I was tall and I stood straight and I was the president of the Oxford Union, so I knew how to project myself as a person in authority. Once we went on location and I started looking at all the Brahmins, I suddenly realized that there the physical stance was completely the opposite. You had to be loose-limbed, where a kind of innate modesty was built into your gestures. But I was criticized for not being a very good actor because I was not looking at the camera. And they all said, well, he's not performing. He's there.
And frankly, I've not seen him in any other movie where he's as good as he was in Samskara.
And one of the assistant directors of Samskara, Gopi, who must be remembered if you are to remember Samskara, for his contribution to what kind of namam you wore. It was different before lunch, it was different after lunch. Gopi knew this because he comes from that background, he works in this Swami, and he was a great help. Only for Putta, we had to look for a special person. It's a very difficult role. And we went to Sringeri, we met the original Putta on whom the character is based. He couldn't act. And me and Vasudev came back to Bangalore and we met Jairam. And he was a good stage actor, and we instantly knew we had found our Putta. And all the women's roles, in those days there was such prejudice against acting in women, is that whenever we approached some actress in Bangalore, she would say, oh well, if it's theatre I would have come, but if it's film, agalappa, no I can't do it. There was this sort of, oh.
ಇಷ್ಟು ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಕರೆದಾಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಭಯ, ಅಯ್ಯೋ ನಾವಿನ್ನೂ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂತ, ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಅಂತ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ತುಂಬ ಅನುಮಾನ ಬೇರೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಥರ ಹಾಡು ಹೊಸೆ ಆ ಥರದ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇರೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ.
So we asked women from Madras players to do the roles, although they knew no Kannada.
So it was more a sort of like a shared we wanted to sort of be together as one family and, share in something. And I didn't tell my people that I was acting in a film.
Really?
No. No, my God. You're very orthodox.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, God.
I just said I'm going to see the shooting, that's it.
Oh, do they know? Did they know later?
I don't know, I don't think so. I don't think they were interested, really.
They're not interested.
So, Tom, just maybe a sample of shots, just to give us an idea of the challenges I think that you faced.
Well, it's a question of managing all sorts of things. The crew, for example, were used to a certain way of shooting, and so I had to get their confidence that what I was doing, which seemed wrong to them, was actually the way to do it.
Yeah.
One of the things, because these lads were so well practiced, we could have the characters walking along the road towards the camera. So the focus is changing all the time. He could follow focus without actually making marks.
Wow.
Without measuring it. So that was a very big bonus.
Today, if you ask me to cry on screen, go back, have tea, have a drink and come back and cry, I'll do it because I have the technique to do it. In those days, I didn't have it. So in those days, to sustain that mood of a particular shot and a particular scene, that kind of rapid shooting was immensely helpful.
So this is where we had the camera for the shots of the juggernaut and the crowds, and of course it was real, like we were taking advantage of the whole event with all the crowds, and we did the shots of him coming into the feast here up these steps where he's really forced by the crowd to into the temple and pollutes the whole feast. I shot from above on a zoom lens, and when they come through the crowd, I'm down with the long lens, but when he flees, I take it in the hand, and it's much more dynamic and run through the crowd while the juggernaut's still here. So I pursued him as though he was being pursued by his own conscience.
One particular person we wanted, an actor,
for the
man who was serving. He is Krishna Bhatt. He is a cook from Udupi. None of the people, his actors had any experience in cinema. That cook, that Krishna Bhatt, he did not even see a film in his life. His entire thing was dedicated to the Udupi Mutt. So we had the camera here. As he is coming here, you said, Krishna Bhatt, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ then immediately no go, he goes there. Finally, when you cut,
excellent,
that was one of the best performances. He did not know what he was doing.
ಶೃಂಗೇರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಸ್ಕಾರ ಶೂಟಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಇಳಿದು SG ವಾಸುದೇವ್ ಅವನು ಸಿಂಹ ಸ್ನಾನ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋಯ್ತು. ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಅಪ್ಪ ನಾನು ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋ ಪಾರ್ಟು ಈ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಚುಟ್ಟಿರೋ ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣರದಲ್ಲ, ಅದರಿಂದ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಬೋಳಿಸ್ಬೇಡ, ಒಂದೊಂದು ಇಷ್ಟಿಷ್ಟ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಒಂದು ಇರಲಿ ಅಂತಂದೆ. ಅವನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಲ್ತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ಯಾ ನೀನು ಅಂತಂದ.
Well, I mean, one had to make them look like the Brahmins in the village.
The end of the main street was the barber shop. That barber used to say, do you want Samskara haircut or crop?
So one incident which was very interesting was our Lankesh. Lankesh looked the part. That was the last day of shooting. Pattabhi said, I don't have any more money, so we'll have to finish the film today. Lankesh, who has never acted in his life, he really was so nervous. Lankesh said, I don't know what to do. I need to have some drink. I said, my God, to get a drink at morning, 10 o'clock, in that Sringeri, that place, very religious place and a small town. So we found a small bottle of brandy in some provision shop, requested him to give it to us. And Naranappa, Lankesh had that brandy and he was ready to act.
We've just finished up the complement of film, the quantity, exactly, I mean, on the last roll.
And Pattabhi called me, then he said, you have to hit Cobra. So, have you got any inhibition to do?
ನೋಡಿ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಪುಟ್ಟ ಅದನ್ನು ಎಸ್ ಬಿಡು ಸರ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ದ್ವಿಜ ಅದನ್ನ ಹಾಗೆ ಒಗೆದು ಬಿಡೋ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಸರಿಯಾದ ಶವ ಸಂಸ್ಕಾರ ಆಗಬೇಕು.
There's nothing, no inhibition until and unless it bites me. That's all. That's the only thing I am afraid of that. And Pattabhi told me, because you are a Brahmin, Samskara has to be done. But of course, it is there in the picture.
Yeah.
But actually, we did Samskara in full on that day.
If you remember, there was a prostitute's house. In front of it, there is a haystack, and that haystack had a phallic symbol.
I thought that was very clever. It was just my face that came. If I'd known that you were doing it, probably I wouldn't have been able to do it so well.
I had felt and felt sorry about was that we didn't sit down, we women didn't sit down, especially Sneha and me, sit down and talk about what our characters were.
Beauty of it was there was no rehearsal.
There is no rehearsal, that's what I'm trying to say. Spontaneity from that point of view.
I didn't realize, that I was acting, I think. We were all raw, in the sense we didn't know what shooting was and filming was. So, we wouldn't have known what to do unless we were told.
A lot of filmmakers feel that it's better that the actors don't know the story because they'll act in the moment, not knowing what's coming next. Well, I think that was probably part of the tension that theatre people do that, preparation and discussion, and it's very satisfying and involving. Because no one else apart from Santanam, myself and Sringitam and Pattabhi had much experience of films, they took the picnic idea a bit too far, and we took the first shot of Girish running up the street to Narayanapa's house, and everyone clapped, oh, wonderful, wonderful. That's the first shot of the film that we took on the film. And then, oh, let's have lunch. So after 2 days, we were practically 2 days behind.
And one evening, we were all there and sitting together discussing about the film, how it should proceed now. And so Pattabhi said, I think we should hurry up and we can't just make it slow.
So we had to have a meeting and explain that we can't do it that way. We have to do it with Mr. Rao calling the shots, one after another. And there was a misunderstanding. They thought that we were being authoritarian or that we were not respecting their contribution or their art.
Pattabhi, instead of calling me aside quietly, me and Vasudev, called a meeting, which annoyed me a great deal.
At that point, Girish, who almost was ready to direct the film, at least at some point of time, because for 2.5 years we thought about filmmaking, and it was our baby. We thought of it as our baby, and so then I was also a bit annoyed because it is important for us to do a good film, and maybe sometimes it slows down, so we'll have to cope up with the things.
The unfortunate part then was that the directional unit
fell into two groups. On one side was Pattabhi, Singitam, Tom Kavan, none of them knew Kannada. You see, and me and Vasudev and Gopi, who could have done and helped with on many occasions, we just stayed out. If Pattabhi had handled that with a little more tact, which surprises me, and I feel that he was probably under pressure from someone to hold that meeting, because that was not like him at all.
It was either that or go home.
And well, that evening was a little bit hot, and I told Girish, let us walk out of this. I don't want to work if there is a sort of a feelings like that. Then I started walking. Girish also came, and for half an hour we drove, then came back.
One thing that held the film together is that we all knew that if the shooting had broken down then, such an attempt could never be attempted again. So on this issue we were all agreed that whatever happened, we had to finish the film.
But I told Girish, I am not going to compromise on our direction. In no way. I will take my own time to do things, but it has to be done that way. And I'm happy that I was not interfered from that time. Fortunately, I had very good support from Tom, who is perhaps the backbone of this film, I think.
Because it was a Kannada film, and because the Kannada papers knew me, they knew Vasudev, and we were the local boys, everything was written putting us forward. So generally a feeling grew. That it was not directed by Pattabhi, it was directed by us, which we never claimed, mind you. I mean, we made no such claims, but we didn't deny the claims also. In me, that bitterness died as I realized, as I went on making films, what kind of pressures Pattabhi must have been at that time, In any case, it cannot be denied that Samskara would not have happened but for him.
It was his idea to make it and the concept. And that's all, in my opinion. If you want to make a film like this and this is way, that's what I call direction. Nothing else.
But Ananthamurthy really, I think he was more evolved than most people, that he stood by Pattabhi. He loved Pattabhi's idea of ending the film as actually Praneshacharya cremates the body, So it was more effective.
That's why I said, when you look back on history, something very important in history happens beyond the wish of any single individual. So I can't say it is my novel or it is Pattabhi's film. Blake has a very great sentence where he says, "This is mine, yet not mine." That yet not mine is very important.
Then there was Rajiv Taranath.
I am not expert enough to judge by looking at rushes, Every instance of that has left me with a feeling that something more needs to be done. And if that something more happens to be my music, then the next step is for me to plan the music. But this was my first cinema.
He said, I have a theme in my title music. And he said, what? He said, I will play the sarod. The sarod represents the caste grammar. And immediately the drums, that comes. He gave the theme of the entire Samskara in the title music.
And another thing I remember when Stephen Carthew, the editor, came, I don't think the theatre company was used to all these extreme close-ups. So when they saw the preview of the film, most of the actors, Girish, Lakshmi and all, they said, no, this is terrible, this looks really horrible, it's not really good, we don't like it. And I remember my father coming back and saying, oh God, everybody hates it, it's not so good, they don't like the cut.
What destroyed us were the rushes. Because we had never seen rushes, you see. We sort of expected a film there to hold our attention, and we were all sure that we had made a complete mess, or Pattabhi had made a mess, or Tom had made a mess, or Steve Carter, someone had made a mess.
But actually what Stephen had done was amazing. He really got this whole Indian culture and this whole struggle that Praneshacharya goes through. But he also had this very intimate shots and really close-ups of things, so it made it really more alive. For me, I think the film is really an exceptional piece of Ananthamurthy's story as well as Pattabhi's take on the film.
it was the first Kannada film to be banned. And, people were curious, why is a Kannada film banned? Because Kannada films were sort of Rajkumar films, innocuous, family films and so on. And when the film was released and film saw it, many of them thought it was because of the love scene.
No. That was a probably excuse. The basic thing was, there was a problem in the censor board members and Pattabhi. There was some problem. They attributed so many things, one to the religious thing, one to the anti-Brahmin thing, so many things they were thinking. Actually, it was not that. Some people did not want the film to be done. That's it. That we came to.
From a previous history.
Previous history.
Censor board in Madras did it. Then we Bombay. When we went to Bombay, they also endorsed the same thing. Then it has to go. Then the only appeal is to the government. Then when it was the government also, they were, most of the hierarchy in bureaucracy and all that is sort of a communal minded in a way, whether they feel it or not. So nobody would dare take any action.
And my father was so upset, and we were upset, and all our money, and we were not really doing that well as a family. So he'd gone off to Delhi, and he was talking to this minister, that minister. And
so finally the minister Gujral himself had to see it. And then there was a debate in Parliament. Half a day was sort of wasted for the sake of this film.
even now I remember that vision of opening the door and him there, and he was unshaven, but happy that it was past.
And really the first show was, fortunately, my guru A.K. Ramanujan was there. He had translated Samskara, and I took him to see, and I kept telling him, now look, we made a mess, it's awful, you must be prepared, etc. He saw the film and he said, it's very good. Well, that was a relief that to all of us that Ramanujan had liked it.
And I remember going for the opening, the opening show with Mummy and Girish, and they were storming the theatre, Lakshmi. It was like Rajkumar was there, It was like a riot outside.
And then, of course, the film went on to win the President's Gold Medal and so on. So then it became history.
In 90s especially, there was this whole movement wherein your cinematography shouldn't attempt to embellish images. It should be as pure as possible. Well, Samskara did all these things much before. A lot of people, why for one, decided to shift our career and become film directors because of films like Samskara.
What I'm saying is, because it became gold medal, because it became famous, I'm not talking about that. But the way we worked
as a
group,
team,
that was what is more important for me.
It was that feeling of togetherness.
Because every moment on the thing we enjoyed ourselves.
Pattabhi is essentially a visualizer, I think. That's why, he can, if you tell him a story, he visualizes in blocks. And also, he's a man of ideas, some philosophical and metaphysical ideas.
Pattabhi gave us the ability to work a little bit without ego.
And Samskara, the whole theme of it, really about how we need to act, not just go on spiritual scriptures and get so locked into what the word says.
Pattabhi was very happy to have made a film, and Sneha was extremely happy that she could act in a film like this. In my life, it's one of the important things which has happened.
Not I or anyone have had the experience of this film.
I can't believe that he did it within a lakh at that time, even if it's 40 years back. When I went back finally by bus, we went, 2 or 3 of us, after our part of the shooting. Pattabhi gave us just enough. That's all he had to give us for the bus and for a masala dosa on the way. So that was wonderful. We thought, God, a masala dosa also.
He was a mathematician. He used to say, this could have been in a bigger budget, any other budget also. But the lesser the budget, the inspiration will be more. That was his mathematical calculation.
Isn't that
He
true?
told me.
Everything I knew about films was from that. We shot like that.
Even today, whatever I say, people will recognize me as Samskara Jayaram even after 40 years. That is why I am happy.
I was happy coming here actually, so it's reliving those days of 1969 April. I could feel a little bit of youth at my old age, That's such a beautiful feeling it is.
Me too.
And now that we've gone back to Vaikuntapura and we've shot, and I heard, all the stories in their words, and I feel that it has been an extremely satisfying and emotionally and otherwise very satisfying experience. Samskara was made when I was a child, and I was also a little resentful because seeing my parents do something which I thought was not, that necessary. But now I realize that their commitment was so deep, and this film was in a way a vehicle for expressing everything that they believed in.